Hello again to all of you. As you know, we change philosophers this week. We go to Immanuel Kant, Grounding for the Metaphysics of Morals, and we spend on this book 3 weeks, which may tell you that it is a little bit of a complicated philosophy. So we spend a little bit more time than we have spent actually on John Stuart Mill. And I know that some of you do like Mill because I read from your comments. I should also add, I have been throwing up all morning long. So if I say anything not philosophical, tell me. Tavi, you have said something wrong about Kant, and I will try to correct me. So anyway, let me try to make the difference between the philosophers so far and Immanuel Kant. He's a German philosopher. In fact, one of the most famous philosophers of all times. Immanuel Kant is people say about him that he never left his own town, but he speaks about the universe as if he has visited, the universe itself. But now in his ethical philosophy, he is different than both Aristotle and John Stuart Mill. Aristotle, you may remember, was talking especially about virtues. He was concentrating on what it is to be a good human being, what it is to have happiness in life. So he was trying to figure out what actions we should perform in order to be always happy. And if you remember, we talked about those three circles. One of them was contemplation, or the life of the intellect. The other one, the larger one, was the virtues. And the third one was the external good. Now, for John Stuart Mill, we no longer talk about a human life, what it is to have a good human life, or what it is to achieve happiness, but we talked about what is required for an action to be right or wrong. And we said that John Stuart Mill concentrates on consequences. That is, we judge whether an action is moral or not, depending on whether it leads or it doesn't lead to the greatest happiness possible for all people concerned, or to more units of pain over pleasure, as we discussed it before. We said that it's about pleasure in many ways. That is, the good is measured in units of pleasure. And also we said, as I mentioned already, that it's about consequences. Now Kant says, no, this is completely wrong. We cannot judge actions according to consequences, but rather we always have to think about only one thing, and that is a good will. And I will read the first sentence in the book, because it's only, you can spend a day just discussing the first sentence, because here's how it goes. There is no possibility of thinking of anything at all in the world, so nothing at all in the world, or even out of it, which can be regarded as good without qualification, except a good will. Virtue, not good without qualification. Courage, not good without qualification. What do I mean without qualification? Suppose you consider one virtue, courage, that Aristotle discusses, right? Courage is not good in itself without any kind of qualification. You have to think about what person is or is not courageous, or in which situations a person acts courageously or not. And Kant even says that, if you look at a evil human being who is courageous, courage itself looks quite bad, because courage makes that human being do worse things than he or she would have done if he didn't have courage. Sorry, right? So, in that case, if virtues are not good without qualifications, but are only good in context, the only thing that can be good intrinsically within itself is the goodwill. Now, the problem is, what is goodwill? And, you may think, or not you may think, but in general, when you think about the goodwill, some people may think about inclinations, that I am inclined to desire good things for others, or that we may also think about desires, to desire good to others. And Kant says specifically, and he concentrates on that, and he says, goodwill is not inclination. Why is it not an inclination? Well, I may be inclined to do good things by nature to other human beings because I'm a good human being, let's say. I was born with certain qualities, perhaps, different people could be born with those qualities. Or they could have learned them in life because they were conditioned well by their society to be nice to others. But it is possible in this life to experience things in which we may perceive that we have been treated unfairly, or we have been harmed without having anything done wrongly. And all those things may lead us to change our feelings, or to change our inclinations, and to become evil and to do bad things to others, you know. So the good inclination I may have will never say anything about my action, that my action is the right action. Even more than that, you know, two actions that look from the outside in the same way, one of them may be the right action, and the other one may only look like the right action, even if it is not in itself moral. Why? Because the first one was determined by the goodwill, that is, by my will to do good to others, regardless of whether I want to do it or not, but my decision to act rightly, even if it's not in my interest, even if it doesn't give me pleasure, even if it's not my inclination. Those are, but I do it because I understand what the good is, and I will good, and I will have to figure out what that means, to know what the good is. But for Kant, for the moment, that's important, to will the good. And the other one may be just because I am inclined to do so, because it gives me pleasure, and so on. Suppose, for example, I've been throwing up, right? So suppose I get to the hospital, and all of you learn that I've been sick, because I just told you. And you say, well, let's visit Avi in the hospital. And you bring me flowers in the hospital. And you do so because out of an inclination, you know, oh, this guy has been speaking on the video, or whatever you can think about, you know, let's give him some flowers. Okay, if you do it because of that inclination, it may be a very nice gesture. It may show that you have good feelings, but it doesn't say anything about your action being right, according to Kant. If you do it, even in spite of wanting to see Tavi, you know, Tavi is a bad guy, he talks about philosophy, who cares about him anyway? And he doesn't shave apparently. And, sorry, obviously I've been throwing up, so my mind doesn't work properly. But you do it because you think it's the right thing to do. In that case, your action is moral. I know it's almost against our normal perceptions, you know, because we enjoy to see people who do it because they desire to do so, because they believe it's good, because it makes them feel good, because they have a right inclination in their mind, because they are inclined to do good to other people. But Kant says, no, that's not the inclination that makes the action right. What makes the action right is the will to do it. So you will it even against your inclination. Now, the question will be, do you have to have the opposite inclination in order for your action to be morally right, or to be done out of duty, as Kant will say it later? And the answer is probably not. And I'm saying probably because there is a debate in Kantian scholarship about this. And I obviously have a side. I'm taking a side. And, you know, you may believe that the other people are right, but I will tell you what I think it is. So I think that Kant is giving all these examples to show how the goodwill is distinguished. But it doesn't, and he does say, you know, that the times in which I have an inclination, I cannot perceive whether the action is done out of the will or just out of inclination. If I'm inclined to do good things to others, so if I'm inclined to go to the hospital to bring flowers to someone who is sick, I may not be able to see, to perceive whether my action, whether the agent for the action, or so the cause of the action is my inclination or the goodwill itself. The moment in which I lose inclination, I realize whether indeed I do it for out of duty. What I'm trying to say, and again I acknowledge I may be all over the place today. What I'm trying to say is that the presence of good inclinations does not have as a consequence the absence of the goodwill. But the absence of good inclinations can exhibit the goodwill. You can see that the goodwill is present at the moment in which this is the inclination is absent. So here is actually, if you look on page 9, 397, I will read this paragraph. The concept of a will, estimable in itself and good without regard to any further end, must now be developed. This concept already dwells in a natural sound understanding and needs not so much to be taught as merely to be elucidated, so we have to clarify it. It always holds first place in estimating the total worth of our actions and constitutes the condition of all the rest. Therefore, we shall take up the concept of duty, which includes that of a good will, though with certain subjective restrictions and hindrances, which far from hiding a good will or rendering it unrecognizable, forgiving, rather bring it out by contrast and make it shine forth more brightly. So, again, it shines forth more brightly the moment in which we have all those things disappearing. One more quote I wanted to mention, and then I will stop this video. I have another one, so look ahead for the other one too. I will create it in a moment. This one is the difference between goodwill and consequences. Look on page 8, so go back. The paragraph just before 395. But there is something so strange in this idea of the absolute value of a mere will, in which no account is taken of any useful results, that in spite of all the agreement received from ordinary reason, yet there must be a right of suspicion that such an idea may perhaps have its hidden basis, and so on. So, the goodwill does not consider the results. I'm not doing something because I want to get some results. I'm doing something because I know it's the right thing to do. So, for example, I'm not. If saying the truth is the right thing to do, I will say it regardless of the consequences of me saying it. That's what the will would make me do. I will make another video in which I will talk about an example with a goodwill. So stay tuned.